Charity White. I am the Assistant Director of the Family Violence and Sexual Assault Institute, and I am also the Conference Co-Coordinator for the 9th International Conference on Family Violence. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the conference and introduce our next speaker. Jonathan Rabin is the Director of Victim Services for the California Attorney General's Office, and he will be introducing the Courageous Kids.
Good morning. This is just spectacular. The turnout, I mean, people standing, all the seats filled. It's really fantastic. Thank you so much for having me here. I do work for the Attorney General, and prior to that, I was a Deputy District Attorney and prosecuted many, many cases involving domestic violence and child abuse and child sexual assault. And what you have done here for this 9th annual conference is just such an amazing step, huge step in the right direction. Watching Drea sing was just amazing, and really what I was watching is the person doing the signing, who was really had this, I don't know if you saw her in the back, but the passion of those people telling the story is just amazing. Attorney General Bill Lockyer's two big issues on crime are domestic violence and child abuse. I don't know, many of you probably don't know that he started off his career before going into the state senate as a teacher. And he often says that he wants California to be the first state to eliminate domestic violence. That's a lofty goal and maybe not realistic, but it'll definitely drive us in the right direction. We have come a long way, but there's so much further we have to go. As a prosecutor, I have a number of children. I just had a baby 5 months ago, and I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I remember as a prosecutor, I used to love hearing my daughter, a few years back, tell other people what I did as a deputy DA. She said, "When people do bad things, my dad gives them a big timeout." A couple of years ago, I was appointed by the Attorney General as his Director of the Office of Victim Services. I'm now doing more policy and legislative work and working with crime victims. She has a little harder time trying to tell them what I do. But we're here today to honor some kids. They're actually young adults. We're going to do that in a moment. I want to read you the dictionary definition of courage, because that's what these young people embody. And I read this morning, Webster's Dictionary. Courage, the attitude of facing and dealing with anything recognized as dangerous, difficult, or painful, instead of withdrawing from it. Quality of being fearless or brave. Valor. Mind, purpose, spirit. Synonym, brave. And that's what these people embody, and that's what all of you really embody. I happened to witness courage firsthand in a case I tried against a father, a man, if you could call him that, who was doing unspeakable things to his young children. And I recall having this young boy up on the stand. Now, this boy had to come up on the stand and tell his story of these terrible things that his dad had done to him. The man that he, trusts and loves doing these terrible things to him. He had to walk up and tell 12 strangers, a judge, a court reporter, and everyone else in the audience what this man did to him. And, I found that when I would ask children, we do a whole preamble about what a good touch and a bad touch was, and when I would get to the point in my cases where I would ask the kids, has anyone ever given you a bad touch? It was kind of like this Pavlovian response where I would start to almost well up, tears in my eyes, because I knew what was coming. And I started off my career trying to hold back, but then I realized I just needed to be natural, and that's what worked well for the jury. But when this boy told his story, he walked off the stand, and I was standing questioning him, and he came and gave me a big hug in front of the jury. And I was kind of hugging him and pushing him away and, not knowing how to react. But I felt after he did that, and this man was convicted and sent to prison, that there was nothing, absolutely nothing this young boy, couldn't accomplish after doing what he did on that day, coming forward and being so brave and courageous. At this point, I'd like to invite our courageous young adults up here to say a few words. And these are the people that are going to be the trailblazers and make a difference in the future, because they're going to tell the story firsthand. You know, as the director of the Office of Victim Services, it's very strange. In the last year, I've gotten so many calls from mostly mothers, again, that are in situations in domestic violence court where they're in custody issues with the father of the kids, and the kids are being put in the home and given, the fathers are given custody of these children, and they are abusers. And it's so frustrating for me to see that the judges and the system are not getting it. They don't get it. And there's something that needs to be done. Talk about, you know, you have these kids that are being abused and put back in the home for in custody with these dads, and it's just amazing. Anyway, now the real part of this presentation is the people that we're here to honor, the young adults that are going to give you a brief victim impact statement.
Okay, whatever works. I'm flexible. Okay, my name is Randall Kravitz, and here's my statement here. When I was 11 years old, the family court took me and my brother away from our mom in California, away from our 4-H and from our friends for absolutely basic no reason at all. Just picked us up, threw us out like the trash to our dad in Indiana. And we were forced to live with him. And about 2 years later, I got tired of it. I got tired of not being heard, and I decided to run away because I felt that was my only option to actually be, heard. And I knew I couldn't go back to my mom because they would probably throw her in jail or try to do something really bad to her. So for 2 years, I just hung around from friend's house to friend's house, trying to avoid from being caught and thrown back with my dad because I didn't want to be there. And then finally I met this excellent advocate, and I finally got hooked up with a good attorney. No offense to all you attorneys out there, but the good ones are very limited nowadays. And then finally, my voice was actually heard via my attorney, which was the greatest thing in the world, and I was able to finally live with my mom and be normal, go outside, go back to school, and not live like a refugee. And just being out here speaking like this helps me get through, and hopefully we'll stop it.
I don't think I can follow that one up very well, so I'm just going to read mine straight. My name is Fatima Oliger. I'm almost 15. My story is when I was taken away from my mom, and when I was really, really little, and I was put into custody of my abusive dad in Tehama County. I was not allowed to see, talk, any contact from her for several years. I didn't know what I did. One of the hardest things for me was I didn't know what I had done to make my mom not love me anymore. I felt really alone and just really, really stranded. I was by myself, and I just couldn't cope with the feeling. When I got old enough, I started fighting back the only way I could, which was by running away constantly. I was put into foster care, taken back out, running away, and that's the only way I could deal with it. The worst part for me was being handcuffed and taken to the psych ward because I was pleading to go home. I was like, please, let me go home, and they decided they didn't want to. I'm finally able to be with my mom, and I'm having a normal life, which is really helping me, heal those hard wounds. The reason I want to speak out is because there's a lot of kids I know that, go through the same issue, but aren't ready to speak out yet, and they need encouragement, so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I have been caught in the family court litigation ever since I can remember. I was taken away from my safe mother and put in the custody of my father, who physically abused me and touched me in ways a father shouldn't touch a daughter. I wasn't able to see my mother for several years. I began running away from my father when I was 12 to get away from the abuse. The worst part for me was being afraid of my father's violence and not having my mom to protect and comfort me. Speaking out has helped me to get protection from my school principal and counselor.
Hello, my name's Stephanie, and I watched my father beat my sister until her face was bloody, her head black and blue, and her lips split open. The abuse didn't seem to matter to the family court. My siblings and I were taken away from my mother and put in the custody of my father, of our abusive father. My older siblings and I fought to get free of our father. We are now safe for now, and our younger siblings aren't. The worst part for me is not having any peace in my life. And the thing that has helped me heal the most is being involved with live theater, and I'm speaking out because I hope to help and change things.
Hello, my name is Jeff Hoverson, and when my younger sisters disclosed being molested by my father, we were taken away from our protective mother and put in the custody of our abusive father. We lived like prisoners and were isolated from our mom, our brothers, our grandparents, and all the friends we knew. Hopelessness and living in constant fear of my dad eventually caused me to become so depressed that I couldn't sleep at night, and I had lost the will to live. And no one in the court system would help me at all. So I finally escaped on my own and went back to my mom's house. But the worst part for me was being at my dad's, not being able to sleep at night, not knowing what he was going to do next, and having no one to comfort me. But being in a comedy acting program has helped me gain back some self-esteem and also helped me to heal. And now I'm speaking out because my sisters are still trapped at my dad's house, and hoping to get them free. So if you've been moved by any of our stories, even in the slightest little bit, please write a letter to Governor Schwarzenegger asking him to fix this problem. Thank you.
Jeff, you're not getting off that easy. I think that Jeff is going to set his siblings free. I really do, if anyone can do it. And I think that in the dictionary under courage, there should be a picture of these 5 young people. But we have something special for them. They don't know about this. As I said, Jeff, you're not getting off that easy. We have medals for them, but I'm I'm going to present to each of them. Last thing I want to say is we're all going to go to the legislature, not only the governor, and we need the help of all of you to make our voices heard loud and clear that something's got to be changed and something's got to be done to make a difference.
I hate having to come up after these things. For those of you who felt like I am, that you did not hear enough about and from the Courageous Kids, you'll be pleased to know that they will be doing a session at the end of today, one of the breakout sessions, talking more about some of the experiences and what led them to find and seek help and how they ended up achieving the success that they demonstrated this morning.
Each player begins with a house, car, boat, jewelry, coin collection, pet, credit card, and money. It doesn't matter how the money is divided among players because all players will lose all their money long before the game is over anyway. Place the camera, puzzle, magnifying glass, whistle, compass, and Chinese handcuffs in the center of the game. These items will be used as the game progresses to add realism to your game experience as you become frustrated with their uselessness. Place the even-numbered ha-ha you lose cards with the number facing up on the Statue of Liberty. Place the odd-numbered hee-hee you lose cards with the number facing up on the picture of Dorothy and Toto. Other items you will need are, to cope with the feeling of futility and may service during play, you will need chocolate, lots of it, Tylenol, lots more of it, cold beverage, and a strong antacid.
What's the object of the game?
The object of Family Courtopoly is to go around the entire game board without becoming a basket case. Speaking of baskets, place the basket labeled Slush Fund in the center of the game board. This is where all your money and assets will go to support the legal and mental health professionals in the style they have become accustomed to.
Well, how do we play this?
Place all character pawns on the ambulance of the Family Violence Square marked Start. This is where the game playing begins. Players must determine among themselves by an open vote which player is the most naive and trusting. That player must go first and will draw card number 1 without rolling the dice, demonstrate that the cards are stacked against him. However, card number 1 will apply to everyone as the cards are stacked against all players, so that each player shall immediately incur debt at the start of Family Courtopoly.
So, who's the most naive then, I guess? I mean, I've trusted a court-appointed therapist.
Well, I've only trusted a court-appointed attorney.
I've only trusted a social worker. I've trusted a judge.
Okay, you go.
Alright, so that means I go next, right?
Okay.
I roll the dice. 9.
Each subsequent player rolls the dice and moves the first available empty space, regardless of the number rolled. Player then draws a card that corresponds to the number on that space. Proceed around the game board until the first player is unjustly incarcerated.
Alright. File for protective order in divorce. Pay $150 filing fee and $150 an hour for therapy.
Alright, let's see what else we get here. Ooh, 7. Okay, let's see. Alright. Hee hee, you lose. Alright. Child discloses abuse and blows whistle on perpetrator. Pay $125 a week to child's therapist for trauma care.
You have reams of evidence of abuse. Ha ha, no one will look at it. Pay investigators bill for $10,000.
You realize truth is irrelevant. Hire an attorney, one with a big car to hold all the motions filed against you. Pay $4,000, retain and give him your vote.
Such fun.
Bye-bye.
All right. So it's my turn then, right?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Let's see here. Lean on this. Let's see. Court orders you to mediation. Ha ha. Mediator won't let you talk about abuse. Take picture of perpetrator beating your child and stalking. Gotcha.
Seems really cool.
Court appoints self-proclaimed Antichrist as your evaluator. Cash your child's college education, fund to pay for biased evaluation.
You have to wait 6 months for the evaluator report because your evaluator went on a cruise with your $15,000. This one's bleeding.
I think you're running out of money.
Yeah.
Court appoints lawyer for your child. Dum-de-dum-dum. Things get worse. Sell coin collection to pay half of lawyer's $50,000 fee.
All right, I've had it. How do you win this game anyway?
I don't know. Winning. There are no winners in family court. Huh. All players are losers. That's right. You just lose while the lawyers and sheiks run to the bank with your money and laugh at the irony of calling your account a trust fund.
Next.
The scaries are basically based on all true events, so you can tell how screwed up our system is right now. Okay, as most of you or some of you might have been at our opening ceremony, so you probably know a couple of us. If you weren't there, I'm Randall Kravitz. And here's my full story of what happened to me and what we're doing about it. Okay, my name's Randall Kravitz. I'm 16 years old. I've been in the family court system for about 6 years. And the person appointed as my attorney was Matt Garrett. You know, he dragged the case on as long as possible, just kept it going. Court appointment after court appointment. 50 plus times, okay? That's way too much for a divorce. It should be like 5 tops. Oh, I mean, that's ridiculous. And then, I mean, my dad, my mother, major custody battle, just, you know, this, that, you know, he said this, she said that. And I wanted to stay with my mom the whole time. Just telling them, you know what, you guys, listen to me. But me being a kid, you know, I'm a kid, who cares about the kid, you know? We're the adults here, we'll just kind of push him around like a trash bag or something. And then, I mean, I had a really good life with my mom. We lived on a small ranch, you know, 4-H all the way. I mean, we raised this one goat, you know, we have this big old herd. I mean, grand champion, I remember I got reserve grand champion up there. That was the happiest moment of my life as a kid. I was like, yes, finally, all this hard work. And I was inactive in my church group, you know, youth group every Wednesday night, you know, go have fun with my friends, foosball, and all that good stuff. And I mean, then, you know, my life also consists of lawyers, evaluators, psychologists, everybody. I mean, I didn't have a normal childhood as it was. I mean, I knew all these big technical words from all these evaluators that I should have never known until I was like in college. And then whenever I would talk to my court-appointed attorney, I would talk to him, sure, and then he'd call my dad. And basically everything I said, one ear, out the other, probably never even stayed in there for more than a tenth of a second inside his head. And then the judge we had in court never listened to my mom. Well, was from what I heard, because I was never allowed in the courtroom one time. We actually tried to go in the courtroom once, and we were thrown out by my court-appointed attorney. And he also yelled at my mom after that for taking us in there, and threatened my mom with jail for bringing us in there. And my mom tried everything,
we tried basically everything. We used a whole forest basically of paper, writing letters, faxes, trying to get someone to listen to us. But since I had a court-appointed attorney, I was untouchable. I was already represented and they couldn't do anything about it. And this was the service of my life. I go home, do my homework, and start writing letters. I should be outside, should have been outside playing with my friends. And then my grandparents got involved from my dad's side, which made things 10 times worse. And their son-in-law was the public defender's office down there in Sacramento County, or up there, according to here. And they used the public defender to just run the case longer and longer and longer, put us into more financial debt. And he even got caught later with prostitutes and drugs. He got 1 month paid vacation, and he's back at his job. So that's pretty bad. And I was always close to my mom. Always, my dad was just wherever he was at. And being forced to live with him for 2 years was ridiculous. And I finally decided to run away. I was tired of it. I was like, you know what, you guys aren't going to listen to me, so I'm not going to listen to you, and you can go do your own thing. So for 2 years, I was just round and about, just friends' houses, wherever I could basically stay to keep from getting caught. And finally, got a good advocate to help me out, got finally a good attorney, and we got that going. And finally, I actually got someone to listen to me. I wasn't even trusting when I got my attorney. I was like, are you going to do something? Are you actually going to do something? The first time I actually saw a paper filing with what I actually said in it was amazing. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world, that I actually had my words were on a court document that went before the judge. He might have not listened to it, but at least they were there. And I was awesome. And then finally, custody got changed over to my mom. But it was amazing. It took them 2 years to finally realize that I have my own voice and that I can think for myself. And they should have noticed that when I was 8 or 9, way back in the day. So, I still don't trust the court system. I think it's a bunch of hooey right now. You can go in there and they'll just, oh, I don't like you, you can do whatever you want, and I'll just, give him whatever. So, we need to clean it up. Many people says, why don't you become a lawyer? Well, I'm like, well, if I'm a good lawyer, what about the judges? So I think we need to work from the top and then just kind of let the trickle effect happen and it will go down. So, yeah, just any of you guys, senators, get involved, representatives of your counties get involved, write the governor a letter, get them involved. Just anything you guys can do to help us, any involvement you can do, please. If any of you seen the movie Pay It Forward, help one person, they help 3. Just do that. Spread the word, get it out, and thank you.
Okay, next we're going to hear from Fatima.
Hi, I'm Fatima. Before I start, can Mom, Susan, Karen, Danielle, and Mary stand up? Please? Our mothers, these are powerful women. They've mortgaged houses for us, they've been on the run, they've been almost jailed for us. They are the reason that we're here today, and I think that they need some respect. So. I'm almost 15, so I've been in the court system since I was 2 months old. So most of my life, I've been dealing with this. From about the age of 4 to 8, I was living with my mom. We had such a fun time. We were a single mom. You know, sometimes pushing the limits, staying up late, getting in trouble, running with friends, having fun. It was just, you know, really good. I was a happy kid. I was a well cared for kid. I did well in school. I had lots of friends, lots of toys. It was just great. I visited my dad 2 weekends a month, you know, had fun over there. It was nice. In 1998, I went for a scheduled visit to my dad's house, and he took me to the CPS in Red Bluff, California, and accused my mom of child abuse. The CPS worker, Jennifer Mitchell, asked me if my mom ever spanked me. And, you know, once in a while my mom would give me a squat's butt for discipline, but, you know, she never abused me. I answered yes because I didn't understand the question, and suddenly my mom was accused of being a child abuser and she wasn't. The next time I would receive contact from my mom would be in 3 years when I was entering the 7th grade. In the 3 years I was living with my dad, the only information I was given by him and his wife was that my mom abandoned me, she was a drug user, she didn't want me, she had a new family and had forgotten about me, and she was going to hurt me if I ever went back to her. I was really, sad and confused and isolated. I couldn't understand what I had done wrong to make my mom not love me anymore. And my father and the people who helped him keep me from my mom brainwashed me, so after a while I began to just resent her. I was like, you know, why would she want to do this to me? At school, I was the only kid of color. I was the only one without a mom. At home, I was ignored. My dad barely talked to me and see how I was. His wife was very mean to me and would lie about me to my dad. He'd ground me without even asking what happened. To this day, she still calls my mom a whore. My siblings are bastards. My, stepdad's an ass kisser. She's just a horrible person. She would repeatedly say, I'm not part of your family. You don't belong here. This is my bathroom, my home. You're under my rules. Even though just for doing simple things like wanting to go to the bathroom, I couldn't because it was her bathroom. I felt alone and like an outsider. Every day I missed my mom, my little sister, my life, everything. I was just always missing it. And, every once in a while I got an occasional picture, and sometimes I got, a letter, but the letters went through therapists and the dad before they ever reached me, so it wasn't a true letter, not something that I could talk to or not something I could express myself to my mom in. Finally, in the 7th grade, I got to visit my mom, and at the beginning of 8th grade, I saw the contrast between my mom's house and my dad's house, and I was like, I can live a better life. I want to go live with my mom. I was tired of being verbally, emotionally, mentally abused by my dad and his wife. My family went to court, and once again, it was the same thing, but it was more painful. The reigning judge, Judge King III, had met earlier when he signed adoption papers for my dad's child, so they're buddies. And he was a well-known child mogul, like my dad's lawyer, Matt McGlynn, and they played golf together. And after the appeal, I appealed to the judge to to be present at future court trials, and I was denied again and again and again. I ran away from school and tried to get to my mom's house, but that didn't work, so I just turned myself into the police because I wanted to get away, and my dad sent me to foster care where I stayed for 10 months. At the end of 10 months, he told me that if I went home with him, I could, I could go live with my mom, but he retained full custody. So every time I wanted to visit him, he's like, I can pull you out, anytime I want to. You have no power over it. This is my life. I get to move you how I want. My dad's star witness was Randy Robinson, who was his colleague's wife, a very close friend of his. We've been on vacation together, and this woman turns around and evaluates me, telling me that I'm psychotic and I'm not right and I have PMS. And she's only seen me once, but she knows all about me. Jennifer Mitchell, my CPS worker, didn't help either. She always tried to intimidate me, calling me, anybody you could ever think of, trying to yell at me to get me to keep from wanting to see my mom and trying to keep me quiet. To get from my foster care center to her, I had to drive, 3 hours. I'd sit there, I'd wait for a couple hours, and then they'd say, you can't see your mom, now go home. And they would call me manipulative. They said I'm a liar, you're good for nothing, you're bigot, just go back to where you came from, you're foster care trash. but I believe that Jennifer Mitchell was having affairs with my father. Finally, I was able to come with my mom, finally, but it was still a big thing was, I still have power over you, I still run your life, I'm still ahead of your life. And then finally we got help because after one time I agreed to go home, he signed me to a psych ward, and then from there tried to sign me to foster care again, but I came home eventually and I ran away back home, and a man named Rick Gore helped me, and I finally got someone to listen to myself after almost 15 years of talking. I finally got someone to listen to me, and it was really nice. So now I'm just, I'm where I want to be. I'm doing pretty good in court. We're still good in court. But the family court scarred me emotionally for life. I'll never get over the experiences of family court. They'll always stay with me. I have no respect, trust, or regard for the family court system. And, children may be young, but we know what feels right, and we know what doesn't. And it's our lives, not yours, that you're playing with. Please help us help ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah is going to speak next.
Hello, my name is Sarah Navatel, and I am 15 years old, and I have been and continue to be a victim of court abuse in San Mateo County, California, where I have been a citizen since I was born. As a result of my parents' divorce, I have been and continue to be subjected to court-appointed attorneys who are supposedly in place to represent my interests, but have only served their own interests. Court-appointed therapists who have done nothing but try to brainwash me into believing that my mother is crazy and that she doesn't love me. And court-appointed mediators who have done nothing but slam my mother, act inappropriate with me by trying to buy my silence with money, hugs, and one-on-one meetings in my bedroom alone, and threats of never seeing my mother again if I do not do what they say. They have repeatedly told me that I cannot live or see my mom because the court says so. I have told everyone that I have wanted to live with my mom because she loves me and takes care of me. I need to be with my mom because I'm a young girl who has not been allowed to be with my mom, and for obvious reasons that I need to be with my mom. My father does not love me or care for me or care about my needs. I am nothing more than means to get money from my mom so he can hurt my mom, and he uses me to show off for his girlfriends. He tries to come off as a loving and caring father, but he's the total opposite. He is dangerous, abusive, emotionally hurts me, and leaves me unsupervised without any rules or restrictions. I am on my own to fend for myself. My mom loves me, cares for me, is kind, loving, and supportive. She is there for me when I need her and helps me with the issues that face a young girl of my age. My father, with the help of his attorney, Philip Schechter, along with the help from Diane Thomas, Steve Montalvo, Jean Loveland, Dennis Durkin, and now Bonnie Miller. The court has done everything to keep me from being with my mom. I know that I have rights, and they have violated those rights over and over again, and have done nothing they have done everything they can do to silence me and keep me silent. I will no longer be silent. I'm speaking out about the wrongs they have done to me and my mom. This is happening to hundreds of young children and teenagers in the San Mateo County and all over the United States of America. I am a citizen of this county and of the United States of America, and I have rights. I will no longer plead for those rights. I am demanding them. Something needs to be done about this problem, and something needs to be done now. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Stephanie.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Hope. I'm 15 years old, and we've been in the court system for the last 4 years in Mariposa and Tuolumne counties in California. I have 6 siblings, 5 sisters and 1 brother. The oldest is 21, and the youngest is 9 years old. My parents' names are Danielle Dubrahe and Don Ellen.
When our parents were together, my mother would take care of us. We were homeschooled by our mother, and we lived at the bottom of a canyon. We had a small Mitsubishi truck and a 32-foot blue motorhome bus. The truck was my father's, and my mom could not drive the motor coach. Most of the time, our dad had the engine in pieces in his garage. Our dad worked all day, and he came home for meals, and then he complained and disappeared into the garage to work on his projects, which he never finished. There were no children in the canyon, so we did not have any friends. None of us kids ever had friends until our parents got divorced. Our mom became very sick in the canyon. Our oldest sister had to take care of us, and she was 10 at the time. And we all had to help one another. One time, my sister Evie, who was 8 at the time, had just finished cleaning the basement when my father got home, and he blew up at her especially. Evie went downstairs and started pulling shoes off the rack, which she had just cleaned, in a fit of anger. Our father grabbed her from behind. She elbowed him in the stomach. He spun her around and hit her in the face. He dragged her up the stairs and threw her halfway up, and then he grabbed her and threw her up the rest. She was not allowed to be seen by anyone, and we weren't allowed to tell anyone what happened to her. We had to act like nothing ever happened. Evie's face was bloody, her lips were swollen, and her forehead black and blue. When our parents split up, we were constantly going back and forth every few days. We weren't allowed to say who we wanted to live with. One day, our mom took us to a shelter for abused women in Marin. We went home after about a week to get our clothes and feed our pets. Our father met us at the house with the police. The deputy had a court order giving our dad full custody of us, giving him the house we were living in with our mom. He had a house 20 minutes away, and the van we had was given to him. Our mom had 18 hours to get out of the house and take everything with her. She had no money, no car, and she lost the one thing she cared about more than anything, her kids. For the next month, our father's mother came out from Florida. It was horrible. We weren't allowed to go outside because we might get freckles. We had to sit in front of the TV screen all day. Our dad got worse by the day. But he played the good father around his mother during the time our mother stayed with anyone she could that would let her sleep on the couch. She borrowed money from her friends, and when we finally got back to her, we were forced to sell the house. We were forced to get rid of our pets. We lived in the family room of a client of our mom's for 1 year because we were too poor to have a home. Her client had a daughter our age who got us into work at the live theater, which we love. Theater became an escape for us. We could get away from our father for most of the time. We were forced to go to his house. Our father hated the fact that we had found something that we liked. He complained that we were never there. When the theater shut down for a few weeks, everything went back to normal. He went back to the garage and we rarely saw him. The theater started up again and we started going back. He'd complain that he never saw us, and we started getting in fights every night about we were never there and that we didn't do anything there to help or something with him. So we pretty much just kept going and didn't really care what he said anymore. My brother, who's younger, he's 8 years old, right? He's 9 actually, right now. And he was at my dad's house, and my dad fed him wheat and milk products, which he's allergic to. He rushed him to the emergency room, and my dad lied about and forced my brother to have surgery, which he did not need. My brother is a dwarf, and my father can't seem to accept that. Our father wants my brother to have a learning disabled label so he can take him away from us. The school says he's not learning disabled and that our father is taking the school to court. The first court-appointed evaluator, Amy Velasquez, turned everything we said against us to make it look good for our father. The one thing that I remember was one time our mom took us camping and the last night was cold. So Amy Velasquez turned it into the kids were forced to live in tents and that we were freezing. Her whole report was like that. She said that our mother was alienating us and that our father gives that report to everyone, doctors, lawyers, schools, and anybody that he meets, to try and make them think that he's such a great guy and our mom is somehow an idiot. We later got a court-appointed lawyer, Deborah Bennett. She was the children's lawyer who twisted things. She made us go to our father's 1 week a month plus 2 weekends. There was us kids that were separated there, and we got to the babysitters where we were told that our mother was a bitch and that she had nothing that she liked us at all or anything, and that we were just making things up. Our father hired Casey Ackers from ISIS, Infant Child Enrichment Services, who catered the children 6 years and under. We were between 8 and 17. To help him set up rules in his house, although we usually did not have much to eat there, he would fill the refrigerator before her visit. He would have to scrub the house and hide the R-rated videos. One thing after another. First he makes us follow the rules for like the first 2 days, and then everything changes and we're forced to stay up later. We ended up having weapons because he blew up at us, and he had thrown us against walls and on the couch, and then called the cops and said that we had assaulted him when he tried to take something from us. When we tried to tell the cops that we were the ones that were hurt, the cops said that we should just listen to our father and things weren't that bad. A few months later, Abby finally decided she wasn't going to my dad's house anymore. The cop came and said, and it was the same cop that had come to our house. Abby was almost forced to go, but his superior, Hunt, came and talked to Abby, and then our father. Hunt told our father to go home, that she was staying with my mother. Our mother wrote to the DA to ask for help. She was concerned because of the guns and beatings. She was told that nothing could be done unless there was a body. Our mom's consulate, she's Swiss, wrote a couple of times to the DA, Donald Storstrom, to ask for an investigation. The answer seems to have been that an investigation was conducted, that there was nothing to worry about. We don't understand how they could have conducted an investigation without our knowledge. We were hoping that they would listen to us, and our witness, the DA's assistant, Mike Knowles, told our mother that if she insisted, we would be put in foster care. Nobody in our family likes our father anymore. We call him our ex-father. He can play the very concerned parent when he wants to, but as soon as there's no witnesses, he'll stab us in the back. He keeps messing up my mom's job. She cannot work or hire an attorney, so we stay poor. We cannot do much, so we are depressed. Most of us have insomnia and nightmares. Many people know about the situation, but the judge doesn't seem to listen to us or our mother's witnesses. Everything the court does is labeled in the best interest of the children, when in reality, it's really in the best interest of the child abuser. Thank you.
Okay, and next we have Jeff.
Okay, hello. My name is Jeff. I live in Amber County, California, which is just east of Sacramento County. I've been in the court system for about 10 years now. I was 7 years old when it all started. I used to live with my mom and brothers and sisters. It was a good life. I had pets, nice room, lots of toys, pretty much anything that any normal kid would have. And I got to visit with my family, my grandparents, my cousins, and everything all the time. So things were, for the most part, normal. But when my sisters said that my dad was molesting them, a lawyer and evaluator were immediately appointed for my sisters and I. I never actually saw my dad molest my sisters, but I knew he would go in their room, like, to tuck them in and, like, not come out for, like, 2 hours. And so hearing my sisters make that, say that about him made perfect sense to me. And my mom told me that the court had made an order for him not to do that, but he kept doing it anyway, and I told the evaluator and the sheriff and the investigator. And even though they listened to what I said, it seemed like nothing was being done. I told Matt Cienzi, the director of CPS in Amber County about my dad verbally assaulting me and abusing me anytime he could, just like mentally. But he didn't seem to care at all. I told my court-appointed lawyer that I wanted to live with my mom, but my court-appointed lawyer, Larry Dixon, attorney at law, refused to reveal the evidence that showed that my dad was molesting my sisters. And the evaluator, Larry Latham, wrote a totally false report, making my dad seem like this wonderful, like outgoing guy. And then in his report, he put that my mom was trying to alienate my sisters and I, and that she told my sisters to say that my dad molested them. And so at that time, I wrote a letter to the judge, Judge Bradford, to complain about my lawyer that wasn't helping me at all, and not listening to me. But again, like everything before, nothing was done. So I was overcome with like a feeling of helplessness. This was at the age of 7. Then, as things progressed, I had still lived with my mom, but there was a lot of court litigation going on. And one day I was at a friend's house, and a sheriff came and picked me up, and then I was immediately in my dad's custody. I had no time to go say goodbye to my mom or get anything from my house. I went straight from my friend's house straight to my dad's house, where my dad took me out to San Francisco, away from the county, so that there would be no chance of us getting involved with anybody that was involved with the case at all. It seemed so much like I had been kidnapped. I didn't know that I would ever return to my mom. Nobody would tell me anything. My dad was the only person with me, and he just wouldn't tell me anything. When I asked him a question, he simply wouldn't answer. So after that, we were appointed a court-appointed therapist, Marcia Knoll, who, for the most part, brainwashed us to hate our mom and to like love living with our dad. But being 10 years old, I was like really confused because I knew what it was like to live with my mom. I knew who my mom was, and then I had this lawyer and evaluator and therapist all telling me like a whole other story when I had lived with her for 10 years of my life. And so let's see what my first reaction was to tell everybody that I wanted to be with my mom. I wrote a letter to my lawyer, even though I kind of figured it wouldn't do any good, but I wrote one anyway. I wrote one to the judge, and I also told my therapist that I wanted to live with my mom. However, none of them did anything about it. So, I mean, normally, like at this time I was 10, normally 10-year-olds dream about the newest Power Wheels or who's cool in football or trading cards or whatever. But all I could think about, I couldn't even do my homework, and just constantly I had to think about ways to get back to my mom's house, ways to see my mom again. I felt so incredibly helpless and so unimportant to the whole system, even to my dad. All of a sudden I was living in a very abusive, very verbally abusive home with no way out, no sleep, and no childhood. I wasn't allowed to see my mom, my brothers, my grandparents, my pets, or even my best friends that I had when I lived with my mom. And again, nobody would tell me why. But being taken away from all these people made me feel so lonely. And my dad and my court-appointed therapist and the court-appointed lawyer all kept telling me and my sisters that my mom was a crazy person, that she was a liar, and they wanted to make us afraid of her. But finally, way down the road, we got to see our mom for 1 hour a week. But we were told by the therapist that we couldn't hug or kiss her or talk to her about life with our dad. So her mission had to be a superficial visit. All my efforts to get back to my mom were shot down by my therapist and my attorney and my dad. But after visits with my mom, our therapist would interrogate us and try to make us say negative things about our mom. She would have my dad and Larry Dixon, our attorney, come in to the office, and all three of them would tell me and my sisters that we should not want to associate with our mother, and how it would be in our best interest not to see her at all. And when my sisters told Marcia Knoll that her friends couldn't come over to her dad's house because of what her dad did to her, Marcia Knoll told my sisters that if she wrote a letter to her friends saying that her dad had never abused her and that he was a good person, that her friends would be able to come over and play again. So obviously my sister felt lonely too. So the therapist handed her the paper and stood over her and told her to write, "My dad didn't hurt me," to each of her friends who she had told directly, like face to face, that my dad did molest her. And because my sister was only 8 years old, she did just what the therapist told her. I mean, she wanted to see her friends really bad. And she was afraid that what would happen if she didn't do it. So then Marcia Knoll, the therapist, mailed letters to my sister's friends and tried to claim that my sisters thought of the letters all on their own and that they were just trying to reach out and speak the truth. So after 4 years, only because my mom kept fighting for us, we got to see her every other weekend. However, my dad always tried to interfere and made us tell her lies about wanting to do something else instead of going to see her, which made me feel pretty guilty. Over the years, I got used to feeling depressed, and it showed. So my mom tried to get a court order for me to have counseling, but because my dad had legal custody of me, he fought against it, and I wasn't able to get any counseling. And to this day, my dad still prevents me from getting counseling. I got worse and worse until I didn't want to live anymore. That's when I lived with my dad. Finally, in April of 2003, I told my lawyer that how abusive my father was, again, just pretty much reiterating it, and asked him to do a motion for me to go back to my mom's custody. But he told me that he couldn't do it. He made excuse after excuse, just the same way an elementary student makes excuse for homework. So I just packed my stuff one night and left my dad's house and went to live with my mom because I realized there was no other way to live with her. Nobody was going to help me. And since then, I've told CPS about all the years of abuse and trying to get some help for my sisters, but they're still, they still won't do anything in our county. These days, my father is still retaliating against me for coming to live with my mom. I've had a lot of pain in my wisdom teeth, so my mom made me an appointment to get them pulled. But when my dad found out, he called the oral surgeon and said he has legal custody of me, and he doesn't want his insurance to pay for me to get my wisdom teeth out. So, still haven't been done. And that's just the kind of person he is, who'll get revenge on anybody. And like, he also tells my sisters now that I'm a horrible person because I don't live there with him, so I don't really get to defend myself. But apart from that, from my sisters being there and my teeth hurting, life is pretty good. All except for the fact that my sisters are still trapped with my father, and they have no way to get back to my mom. Their words weren't heard just as mine weren't, and they have to pretend everything is okay because they don't know what my dad would do to them if they told the truth. I know they feel just like I did so many years ago. They're hopeless because no one will do anything to help them. There's nobody that can help them will. In fact, everyone who's supposed to help the children in abusive situations will usually ends up helping the abuser. So what myself and my sisters have learned is that the people in the courts who are supposed to protect you can't be trusted. I'll be scarred forever from the years of pain taken away from my mom and my brothers and having to live with my abusive father. My childhood was virtually stolen from me. I am 18, so I won't have to worry about ever having to go live with my dad again. Now I'm only in the battle to try to help get my sisters free. I'm looking for people who can be trusted, and although it seems to be a challenge, I'm trying to protect my sisters. I'm praying that the new judge on our case will finally listen to evidence on our father's abuse. And that's what I'm doing for now. But in the future, I'm going to be a United States Senator, so I can pass more strict laws. Strict laws to keep this from happening to any other kids. And so I can stop people in the court system from helping the abusers. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, not only are these kids incredibly courageous, but they're also incredibly exhausted. This has been a big ordeal for them, and I just can't say enough about them. They're just tremendous people, and they have the power to make a difference in the world. Next, we're going to hear from Geraldine Staley.
Thank you. This is a hard act. You guys are wonderful. And this is really our hope of the future, isn't it? I mean, this is our future. When we don't take care of our future, we're making a huge mistake. And I think you probably heard that from many different speakers and from many different angles since you've been at this conference. But what's going on with our children not being protected, you got a little sample today of what those of us who've been working on this issue for the last few years hear every day, these stories every day. This is what the best interest of the child is being interpreted to mean in courts all over this country. And I think you heard what the best interest of the child has come down to. It's come down to the rights of abusers. It's come down to the rights of the people with the most resources, the most money, with the most power to make decisions and silence children. I mean, the extent to which people with power are going to silence the voices of the children that they're supposed to be listening to is phenomenal. And I think it strains our credibility. So I know that I may be speaking mostly to an audience of people who've had the experience. And once you have the experience, you become a believer. But until you have the experience, it's very hard to believe that well-meaning people, and actually some of these people were probably well-meaning people. We can talk later about how well-meaning people make such bad mistakes. But sometimes they do. But how it is possible for the courts to be doing such a terrible job, at least in a large number of cases that we know about. And, of course, you may know of cases where it went right. I know of cases where it went the way it should go, where a child made a report, they were believed, the system geared into action, and the right decisions were made. And we certainly acknowledge that there are cases like that. We're not damning everyone in the court system. We know this court system is full of people who care about children. But it's also, unfortunately, full of some people who apparently, for a wide range of reasons, are making some really bad judgments. I'm a social psychologist, and so I do research. I'm at Cal State San Bernardino, and I've been working on the area of family violence for, it seems like, forever. I was the director of one of the early shelters back in the late 1970s. And so that's a long time that I've been doing this. I had an epiphany of sorts in the 1980s, which wasn't quite so long ago. And that is when the first data was collected by the National Crime Survey about domestic violence and other crimes as it related to relationship. For the first time, the database of crime in the society asked the question in their survey about relationship. And that's when we found out that 70% of the crimes that are committed around family violence, including assault and kidnapping and all of the other kinds of crimes that happen after the woman leaves the relationship. And at that point, I realized that we've been asking the wrong question. Instead of saying, why doesn't she leave, we should be asking, what happens to her when she has the courage to leave? And that's, exactly what happened to the mothers of these children. And you'll notice in the children's stories that most of them situation until they actually left, right? Several of you had to actually leave. Get up and leave, even though they told you that we weren't allowed to do that. You actually had to leave. And leaving is dangerous and leaving is scary. And what we found out is that when women leave abusive men, the men don't give up. And the children become the focus, often, of that power and control struggle. And it gets moved from the kitchen and the bedroom and the garage, where the violence is happening in the relationship that's intact, to the courtroom, to visitation where threats are made, to the lawyer's office, ultimately to the judge's chambers. And that power struggle goes on. And very often the mother doesn't have the financial resources, and very often the mother is at a disadvantage. And she's particularly at a disadvantage when she raises issues of concern about her children's well-being. Because suddenly then she becomes something that the family courts abhor, and that's an unfriendly parent. You know, this friendly parent provision in family law all over the country, in many, many states, says that the children should go to the friendly parent. And if you are unfriendly enough to raise the issue of physical or sexual abuse, suddenly you are the problem. And we see this vast difference in the way criminal courts are handling family violence and allegations of physical and sexual abuse, where they're doing a pretty good job, a much better job than they did 20 years ago, versus the family courts, which appear not to be doing, if anything, seem to be getting worse. By many attorneys who have worked for years tell me that they think things are actually worse in family courts in the last 10 years. And so my perspective and interest has been to try to look at this systematically and give us some answers about, first of all, what's the impact? You certainly have heard eloquently the impact on the lives of these young people. But how many kids are involved, and what sorts of things do they report? These kids are the wonderful survivors. What about the kids who aren't able to get up and talk to you because they are not surviving so well? And so where are their voices? And so one of the responsibilities of being a researcher is to try to get as much empirical information as we can. And I've done a series of studies over the last 15 years since I became interested in what happens after the woman leaves. And I've looked at the fact that women in shelters report that they often return their batter because of fears for their children, threats against them physically, or threats to kidnap them. I found in a survey of shelters that a large number of women fear that their children will be kidnapped or taken away from them in custody. That once they leave the batter, this power and control continues. And most recently, I've been working with the California Protective Parents to do a survey of the experiences of parents who protect their children only to find a backlash. And so that's kind of the miracle side of the presentation today, is to tell you a little bit about this survey that we're doing. Now, this is just a first step, and as a first step, we have put together, and it's a number of us, I didn't do this alone, in fact, Karen Anderson put together the questionnaire originally, came up with the questions, and then I honed them and worked on them, Connie Valentine has worked on them, we all, many people in Protective Parents had input, and eventually we put together a questionnaire, which we have, by the way, and if at the end some of you are yourselves protective parents, or know parents, fathers or mothers, because fathers can also be in this situation. They aren't very often. Courts do treat fathers differently than they treat mothers, but both fathers and mothers have had the experience of not having their reports of abuse listened to. So if you know a parent who's protected, we'd like you to fill out the questionnaire. So we put that together, and I'm going to be reporting today on the first 107 cases of people who've written these questionnaires for us. Now, I want, first of all, to say to those of you who are researchers or who know something about research, this is a very biased study. Now, it's not a bad thing to be a biased study, but it's very important from an empirical point of view to acknowledge what biases exist, because every study has certain biases. This has the bias of self-report and self-selection. And what that means is that it's people have had to find their way to us, or they had to accept a questionnaire and decide to fill it out. So we don't have a random selection of people going through divorce in this study. I'm doing another one in court files that I'm going to be talking about on Wednesday, where we actually looked at a random selection of court files that support some of what I'm going to be saying today. But this study was not random. People are giving us their best memory. Self-report, of course, is from the perspective of the person who's filling it out. So this is the first step, to gather information from the perspective of parents who've had the experience. The next step, which is going to be underway soon, is to take a subset of these questionnaires and actually begin to look at court documents and court data and get more information that way, and kind of take the next step beyond just self-report to an actual study of the court documents that are involved for those parents who are willing to have us do that. But so those are the limitations of the study, and I think it's important to recognize those. On the other hand, these are stories which have a lot of what we call internal validity in psychological research. That means the stories people are telling who don't even know each other, who come from all different states. Only about half of our questionnaires are from California. The other half are from all over the country. So people who don't know each other, who don't know each other's experiences, have no contact, are telling us stories that have a high level of consistency. And that's very important to them. That gives them a lot of strength, and that suggests that the stories that they're telling us have a pattern, and they're having similar experiences which they're reporting to us. Of the 107 women who filled out these questionnaires, they had 183 children. So 183 children are covered. Now we've had about another 25 women and about another 50 children involved in additional questionnaires that have been filled out. So that's up to 135 now. But in this group that I'm reporting to you now, it's 185 children and 101 women. In this 107 cases, 419 attorneys have been involved. The women on the average have gone through 4 attorneys. You will be surprised to know that the total cost of these cases is reported by the women to be over $8 million, with $80,000 being the average amount that the woman has spent trying to protect her children. And 26% of the mothers have filed for bankruptcy just because of their pursuit. So we really they really deserve the standing ovation we gave them. Mothers are sacrificing, and fathers when there are fathers involved. Parents who try to protect their children are making a great sacrifice emotionally and financially. 88% of the protected parents were subjected to a court-ordered evaluation, and the average cost of the evaluation was about $7,500. So that's the kind of money. And sometimes people say, well, why is this happening? Well, money may be part of some of the reason I see some people nodding their heads, but there's more to it than money. And we'll talk about that perhaps when we have time for questions at the end. When this whole process began, most of the mothers had custody of their children. 94% of the mothers were the primary caretakers, and 87% of them had custody at the time of separation. By the time the court proceedings were through, only 27% of them still had custody of their children. So almost 3/4 of them lost custody by raising the issues of abuse. And 85% of the mothers found that when they got to court, they weren't even allowed to present all of their witnesses. 67% of them lost custody in an emergency order, not even part of the judicial process. 65% were threatened by sanctions by the court if they talked publicly about what was happening to them. 63% of the mothers were actually advised by someone not to report. And that included attorneys and even mediators. Court-appointed mediators told the women to stop making these reports or they're going to lose their children. 58% of them lost custody in what are called ex parte proceedings. And that means proceedings that happened without their even being present, without their being represented, without them having any opportunity. I think another misconception that the general public has is that family court follows the same rules of criminal court, where you have the right, as a defendant in a criminal proceeding, to have your attorney present if the other side talks to the judge. You know, if you're accused of a crime, the prosecutor doesn't go get to have a private conversation with the judge about your case. And if they do, they're breaking the law. And they can be sanctioned and the case can be thrown out. That's not at all true in family court. Family judge can have all the conversations he wants with the father's attorney, the mediator, the evaluator, anyone else. He can talk to them, they can talk to them without the woman being present, without the woman's attorney being present, and without them having any information. And then they can go ahead and have a hearing with no court reporter present. 58% of them lost their children in proceedings that there was not even a record of the proceeding. There was no court reporter there. So think how hard this is to challenge. 57% of them were not even allowed to see a negative psychological evaluation. That some decision is made on an evaluation, they don't even get to rebut it. They don't even get to see it. So I think these are things that people do not recognize unless they've actually been in the system or been advocates for someone in the system. The assumption that the court is fair, that both parties get to present their witnesses, they get to be fully heard, that's not happening. The judge can decide that he just doesn't want to hear from that doctor that saw the bruises or treated the injuries that came from the abuse. He can just decide he's heard enough about abuse and doesn't want to hear anymore. And so it's a very different kind of system. It's like a star chamber proceeding in many ways. And that impact then is incredible on the children. What are some of the impacts on the children? What are some of the results of this? Well, we found that 50% of the children reported depression. 50% had some sort of sexual acting out behavior. 60% had stomach aches, headaches, and other somatic symptoms. 38% of them had symptoms of disassociation. 81% had nightmares and had sleeping problems. 66% had fears and phobias and serious anxiety. Almost a third of the children showed some eating disorders. 47% had bedwetting. And almost 60% of these children were less than 5 years old when this whole proceeding started. As you heard from some of our young people, this starts really, really early and continues, until they're 18, basically, in many cases. Suicide attempts, 12% of the children attempted suicide at some point. So we're talking about very, very serious psychological consequences. At the end of the day, how do the mothers and children feel? Well, 83% of the mothers no longer believe that they can protect their children. 73% of the children, even though 73% of the children continue to report abuse, the mothers have lost the sense that they can do anything about it. And this feeling of helplessness and powerlessness is what makes it extremely difficult to continue this fight. And so we had a number of mothers, almost a third of the mothers said that they no longer felt that they could fight it. They just felt that they had no resources left, that there was nothing they could do about it. And some mothers said things like, if I could just see my children, mothers who've been cut off from their kids entirely, if I could just see my children, I wouldn't even ask about abuse now, because I know there's nothing I can do about it. So this sense of helplessness, and that's another reason I think that the mothers who are, and other protective parents who are fighting back deserve so much support from us and acknowledgement of what it takes psychologically as well as financially to continue this fight. It takes a great deal of courage. So that is our kind of a synopsis of our findings to this point. I can make the findings available to you if you want to come up afterwards and let me know. I would be glad to send you a synopsis of what we have so far, if that would be useful to you. We're going to continue to collect. I guess, Connie, back there, do you have the, so it's back on the table. So there are the protected parent surveys are on the back table. So if you can fill out one yourself, or if you know someone, if you have a practice in which you have, or work in some advocacy position where you have women or men who are reporting abuse and are having these negative experiences, it would be very helpful to us if you would fill this out. So thank you so much.